هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تلوح هذا رمضان.
I start with the name of Allah Ta'ala. I praise Allah, I thank Him, and I humbly ask Him to raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his kind Ahl and companions, and to protect his nation from that which he fears for them. Inshallah, in this session, we are going to start with section number 2 in the chapter of convictions. And this section speaks about the meaning of La ilaha illallah. We are going to explain in detail and go over the meanings of this honorable statement, La ilaha illallah. As you can see on the screen, the author said, the meaning of La ilaha illallah, no one is God except Allah, is that no one has the power to create, that is, to bring from non-existence into existence, except Allah. And this is the meaning of create, to bring from non-existence into existence. This interpretation for this honorable statement, La ilaha illallah, the interpretation that we just read is what Al-Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, the Imam of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, has said. So, as the author said, as you can see on the screen, he said, as the Imam of Ahlul Sunnah, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, explained this honorable statement. Now, in the previous sessions, we spoke that the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they interpreted this honorable statement in two ways, right? We mentioned this. Some of the scholars, and what we mentioned now is one of them, what has been said by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, he interpreted this statement by saying that it means, La ilaha illallah, it means no one has the power to create except Allah Azza wa Jal. That is one interpretation. Some other scholars among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and again, both of them are true, they are accepted, they are for scholars among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The second explanation that we mentioned before is that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah. So you mentioned both interpretations and both are accepted, both are true. Okay, let's continue. The author, rahimahullah, said, so all that is in the skies and above them, all that is in the skies, such as what? Such as the angels. And what is above the seven skies, the seven heavens, that is paradise. It is above the seven heavens. And above the paradise is the grand throne, the arsh. All of this is created by Allah Azza wa Jal. So he said, so all that is in the skies and above them, what is on the earth and below it, what is on the earth, such as who? Such as human beings. We are on the earth. Then he said, what is below it? There are 7 earths. So under this earth, there are 6 more earths, all created by Allah Azza wa Jal. And underneath them is hellfire. Also, it is created by Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, so the author continues to say, what is on the earth and below it, and what is between the skies and the earth. What is in between the heavens and the earth, such as what? Such as the sun, such as the moon, such as the clouds, such as the stars, all created by Allah Azza wa Jal. Let's continue. He continues to say, no one other than Allah created them. That is, no one other than Allah brought them from non-existence into existence. We mentioned this is the meaning of the word create, to bring from non-existence into existence. He continues to say, exalted is He, whether it were an entity or a deed. Whether it is an entity, something that has a volume, or a deed, an action, whether this or this, it is created by Allah Azza wa Jal. And here, it is very important to mention that the kinds of the creations in general, they are 2. A'yan and a'rad. What is the meaning of a'yan? What's the meaning of a'rad? A'yan, what has a volume. A'rad, the attributes of the volume. Both the a'yan and the a'rad, both are created by Allah Azza wa Jal. So these are, in general, the two kinds of the creations. Let's continue. Whether it were a mass or body or an attribute, whether it is a mass, a body, or an attribute, it is a creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Motion or stillness, here he mentioned two characteristics of the body. Motion and stillness. Bodies have characteristics. Among these characteristics, volume, quantity, mass, movement, stillness, right? All of these are characteristics of the body. So the author mentioned two examples. He said, whether it is a motion or stillness, it is created by Allah Azza wa Jal. Then he said, a thought or contemplation or management. So a thought, something that comes to your mind without your will, it is created by Allah. Then he said, or contemplation, something that happens intentionally, something intentional, right? It is created by Allah Azza wa Jal. And then he said, or management, all of these are created by Allah Azza wa Jal. The author continues to say, this dictates that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah. Remember when we spoke about the two different interpretations for this honorable statement, La ilaha illallah? Here, the author is mentioning the second one. We mentioned the first one that was said by the Imam of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, that is, no one has the power to create except Allah. Now he's saying, this dictates, so the first meaning dictates, it leads to this second one, that is, no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah. And this is why the scholars said the first meaning, the first interpretation is better than the second. Why? Because it dictates, it leads to the second, right? So he said, this dictates that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah. That is, no one deserves the ultimate extent of humility except Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, let's continue. The author continues to say he created the word in its entirety, the upper and lower part. What does he mean by the upper part of the word and the lower part of the word? The upper part, the heavens, the skies, and what is in the skies, and what is above the skies, that is the paradise and the arsh. And when he said the lower part of it, the earth and what is beneath the earth, okay? The upper part and the lower part are created by Allah. He continues to say, the arsh and the kursi. The arsh is a creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. It is the largest creation in terms of size, right? The arsh is the largest creation of Allah in terms of size. Allah Ta'ala created it and does not need it. Now, if someone were to claim that Allah Ta'ala is sitting on the arsh, wal-'iyadhu billah, we ask, who created the arsh? They would answer, Allah. And this means that Allah existed before the arsh came into existence. And after the creation of the arsh, Allah Ta'ala does not change. Then if they claim that after creating the arsh, Allah sat on it, they would be ascribing a change to Allah. And the change is the most obvious sign that such a thing is a creation. Okay, the author continues to say, let's see, he said, the upper part and lower part, the arsh and kursi. Then he continues to say the skies and the earth. All of this is created by Allah. No speck moves except by His will. What does that mean? No speck moves except by His will. Speck means particle. So no particle moves except by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. What is meant by the particle here is the fine dust that usually we see it when light comes through an opening, right? We see these little things, the fine dust. This is the meaning of what is meant by speck here. no speck moves except by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, except by His will. Okay. He continues to say, and not a leaf falls except that He knows about it. This means that Allah Azza wa Jal knows the number of every leaf that falls. Every leaf that falls from a tree, Allah Ta'ala knows it and knows the number of the leaves that fall from the trees. Allah knows their number and their attributes before falling and after they fall. Allah's knowledge encompasses all of this. Let's continue and follow with me on the screen, please. The author continues to say, there is neither a grain in the darkness of earth. There is neither a grain in the darkness of earth. What does that mean? This means that Allah knows about every grain and every seed that is concealed by the earth. Every grain and every seed buried beneath the soil is not hidden from the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. That is the meaning of what the author mentioned. So he said, Rahimahullah, there's neither a grain in the darkness of earth, nor anything moist or dry, but is inscribed in a clear book, the guarded tablet. It means all these matters that were mentioned. He mentioned the leaves, he mentioned the grains, he mentioned the seeds, he mentioned the skies, he mentioned many things. So all of this is written in Al-Kitab Al-Mubin, the guarded tablet, Al-Kitab Al-Mubin. So what the author wanted to say by this is that Allah's knowledge encompasses all of that. As Allah Ta'ala said in Al-Quran Al-Kareem, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. Okay, let's continue. The author says, His knowledge encompasses everything, and He knows the count of all things. He is alive and He is Qayyum. What is the meaning of He is alive and He is Qayyum? When we say Allah is alive, it means Allah is attributed with life, and the life of Allah is not similar to the life of the creation. And when we say Allah Ta'ala is Qayyum, it means that Allah is the one that truly manages all of the creation. That is the meaning of Allah Al-Qayyum, is Qayyum. And then the author continues to say, He is not seized by somnolence or sleep. He mentioned two things that are the attributes of the creation. Somnolence and sleeping are attributes of the creation. And Allah Ta'ala is clear of that. Okay, let's continue. The author said, Rahimahullah, He does whatever He wills, and He has power over whatever He willed. To Him belongs the dominion, and He needs none. We are in need of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Ta'ala does not need any of His creation. The author continues to say, to Him belong the glory and everlastingness. This means that Allah is attributed with everlastingness, that is existing without an end. And then he said, and to Him belonged the ruling and commanding, and He has the names of perfection. What does that mean? It means that Allah Ta'ala, all His names, all the names of Allah Ta'ala signify perfection. All the names of Allah signify perfection. None of the names of Allah Ta'ala denote any imperfection. The author continues to say, there is no preventer to what He decreed and no deflector to what He has given. If Allah Ta'ala willed for you to get something, no one can stop this thing from reaching you. That's it. And this is understood from the Qudsi hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah Ta'ala said, O Muhammad, if I decree a matter, it will not be hindered. So whatever Allah Ta'ala has eternally willed and decreed to be, shall be, as we mentioned in the previous sessions. Okay, let's continue. The author continues to say, He does in His dominion whatever He wills, and He rules His creation with whatever He wills. This means whatever Allah eternally willed to be shall be as Allah Ta'ala willed. This is the meaning. So we are forbidden from objecting to Allah Azza wa Jal. Whatever Allah willed to be shall be as Allah Ta'ala willed for it. Let's continue. The author continues to say, He does not hope for reward and does not fear punishment. This means that Allah does not hope for reward from His creation, nor does He seek any benefit from His creation. That is the meaning. So, when we obey Allah Azza wa Jal, we benefit ourselves. When we pray, when we perform the obligations, we benefit ourselves. And when we disobey Allah Azza wa Jal, we harm ourselves. As the author said, Allah Ta'ala does not hope for reward and does not fear punishment from His creation. Okay, He continues to say, there is no right on Him that is binding. What does that mean? It means that there is no obligation on Allah that He is bound by. There is nothing that He must do, and there is nothing He is forbidden to leave out. That is the meaning. Allah Ta'ala will reward the believers in the hereafter with paradise out of His grace and generosity. And Allah Ta'ala will torture the non-believers and some Muslim sinners by His justice. Okay, let's continue. And no one exercises rule over Him. No one exercises rule over Allah Azza wa Jal. Every endowment from Him is generosity, and every punishment from Him is just, as we just explained. He continues to say, He is not questioned about what He does, rather they, meaning the slaves, rather they will be questioned. Allah Ta'ala is not questioned about what He does. However, human beings, the creations, they are questioned about the acts that they acquire in this life. We are questioned about the actions that we acquire in this life. Okay. Then he continues to say, Allah is existent before the creation. Allah Ta'ala created the universe and all of its contents. Allah Ta'ala created everything. Everything other than Allah has a beginning, is created. Allah is eternal. He does not have a beginning. Allah existed before the existence of any of His creation. That is the meaning of this statement. Okay, let's continue. He said, Allah is existent before the creation. He has no before and no after. It means Allah Ta'ala, His existence does not have a beginning, and His existence does not come to an end. Allah Ta'ala is eternal, and Allah Ta'ala is everlasting. So, the existence of Allah is not followed by any annihilation, and the existence of Allah was not preceded by non-existence. That is the meaning of Allah Ta'ala is eternal and Allah Ta'ala is everlasting. Okay, let's continue. So He has no before and no after. We explained it. No above and no below, no right and no left, and no front and no back. It means that Allah Ta'ala is clear of existing in any direction, and Allah Ta'ala is clear of existing in all directions. We are surrounded by directions. We exist in a place, right? I'm now in a room. So I am surrounded by 6 directions. Allah Ta'ala is clear of that. Allah Ta'ala exists without a place. Let's continue. It must not be said, when was He? Or where was He? Or how is He? Now, this is a very important point. What the author just mentioned here, what does that mean? It is not permissible. It is not permissible to say, when was Allah? because this entails that Allah has a beginning. When we use this term, when, we ask about what? When you use this term, you're asking about time. When did you come? When are you leaving? So when entails, it shows that you're asking about what? About time. So if one says, when was Allah? This entails that Allah has a beginning. So it is not permissible to say this statement. Then he said, nor it is permissible to say, where was Allah? That is asking about a place or location of Allah. Walayadu billah. We say that Allah existed and none of the creation existed. Thus, Allah existed before the existence of place and locations. And Allah is as He was, eternally without a place, without a location, because Allah does not change from one state to another. Then he mentioned a third statement. He said also it is not permissible to say, how is He? Now, how is a term that is used to ask about the attributes of the creations, and Allah Ta'ala is clear of all the attributes of the creations. So how? We can use it in reference to the creation, but not in reference to Allah Azza wa Jal. Let's continue. The author said, He existed and there was no place. He created the creations and willed for the existence of time. So the time is a creation of Allah, and time does not lapse on Allah. Allah Ta'ala is not bound by time. Time lapses on us, but Allah Ta'ala is clear of that. He created time. He is not bound by time. As the author will mention now, let's continue. The author says, He is not bound by time and He is not specified with place. His management of one matter does not distract Him from another. What does that mean? The one who would be distracted by managing one matter from another is who? Is the one whose doings are with parts, organs, limbs. If we're doing something, we would be distracted from another thing, another matter. So the one who has limbs, parts, hands, organs would be distracted. If he's doing one matter, he would be distracted from another matter. However, Allah Ta'ala is clear of needing the help of instruments in His doings. Allah Ta'ala is clear of that. Let's continue. The author said, okay, He is not specified in the mind, He is not envisioned in the self, and He is not encompassed by the mind. Then he continues to say, He is not conceived with delusions or thoughts. There is nothing whatsoever like Him, and He is the one who hears and sees.
هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تجري